welcome to worship. This is the fourth Sunday of Easter, which is sometimes called Good Shepherd Sunday, so let's start with this prayer. Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wrongs, beyond my fears, from death into life. Join me if you like. Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wrongs, beyond my fears, from death into life. Amen. As a former English major, I do appreciate a good metaphor. Metaphors are how I make sense of life and sort out my thoughts, and metaphors are what I love best about the Gospel of John, which is rich in metaphor, proving that Jesus and I truly are soulmates. I understand Jesus best when he teaches in metaphor because that's how my brain works too. But the 10th chapter of John's Gospel gets a little confusing because, can't believe I'm saying this, there are too many metaphors. You see, metaphors are a bit like spices. You can only use so many in any one dish before it just becomes confusing. Yeah, I can't even say 100 words without using a metaphor. I'm going to read to you the beginning of John's 10th chapter. You'll see what I'm talking about. But fear not, I promise we will make sense of it in the end. So sit back and enjoy the ride, metaphorically speaking, while we hear the beginning of what is commonly called the Good Shepherd Discourse, the first 11 verses of John's 10th chapter. Jesus said, "Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is the thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hears his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers." Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the Good Shepherd." The religious leaders to whom Jesus was speaking were confused by this, and I can't say that I blame them. In one short speech, Jesus uses several different metaphors to describe himself. It sounds like he's the guard at the gate, he calls himself the gate itself, and he also claims to be the shepherd, calling the sheep by name and leading them through the gate. So which is he, guard, gate, or shepherd? It's a tad confusing. Jesus, which one of those three metaphors are you really? This is a well-seasoned dish, but if we remove the flavoring of those various metaphors, we can identify the main ingredient. And to me, that is the essential question: what are we being served here? I find the answer to the question in verse 10, when Jesus said, "I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." That is his why. Why did he come? What was the point of everything he said or did? That they may have life and have it abundantly. Whatever metaphor you want to use for Jesus, shepherd, gate, guard, his ministry served this purpose, that people may have life and have it abundantly. So what does that mean? We may be tempted to answer that question using a metaphor, but for once, let us not. Let's consider the literal, non-metaphorical outcome of Jesus' gift of abundant life. We see it in the event that immediately precedes this little shepherd discourse, the big event of chapter 9, which we can easily miss if we just drop in like we did on chapter 10, but context matters. So I'm going to be a good teacher and help us hear Jesus' words in their proper context. You see, just before Jesus told the religious leaders about his mission to help people have life and have it abundantly, he had performed a miracle of healing. Specifically, he had given sight to a man born blind, which is a pretty cool thing. But in this case, the what is far less important than the why. Yes, it's impressive that Jesus could heal blindness, but what's really important is the point he made by doing so. You see, as soon as Jesus' own followers saw that blind man, They started asking whether he was blind because of his own sinfulness or because of the sin of his parents, because in their worldview, any kind of affliction was viewed as divine punishment for sin. So they wanted to know whose fault was it that this guy was born blind. And Jesus, not having any of that theological mishmash, set the record straight. It was no one's fault. And then he went and he healed the guy so that he too could finally experience this so-called abundant life, because in his world, blindness was a barrier to living a full life. Gaining sight gave him access to things like employment and friendship and worship, the kind of things that would sustain him body and soul. And when the religious leaders got wind of this, they grilled that no longer blind man on what had happened, and when he spoke his truth, it was so offensive to them that they actually drove him out. But that's not where the story ended for the formerly blind man. When Jesus heard what had happened to him, he went looking for that guy, sort of like a shepherd looks for a lost sheep. Jesus made sure he was included in the community they were building, in which Jesus acted as guard or gate or shepherd, pick one, and let people in. And that is the context of the shepherd discourse. With all the metaphors about gates and shepherds, we can debate all we want whether Jesus is the gate or the shepherd, which metaphor we like better, or which theological premise is better supported by one or the other. But the essence of the teaching will always be this: Jesus came so people would have life and have it abundantly. And what that looks like is that the folks who were not welcomed were brought in. Those who had been cast out were called in, invited into the community of Jesus' followers, where they were all learning what it meant to have life and have it abundantly. Jesus' followers would carry that mission statement forward into the community they would build after his death and resurrection. If they saw themselves as gates, those gates swung wide open. If they saw themselves as shepherds, they were good ones. What did this look like non-metaphorically? Literally, it looked like this as described in the 2nd chapter of Acts, verses 42 through 47. The believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the community, to their shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles. All the believers were united and shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day, they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. The Lord added daily to the community those who were being saved. Why were people attracted to this community? Because they demonstrated God's goodness to everyone, not some and not just to the ones who said and did the right things, but to everyone. The followers of Jesus were open gates, and once people were in their safe place, their sanctuary, they were good shepherds, setting tables for those who longed for the life-giving gifts of food and fellowship. The followers of Jesus wanted others to have life and have it abundantly. I noticed that teaching and worship and prayer were essential parts of that early church's identity, and they had to be. The followers had to continue to share Jesus' teaching if they wanted to build his kingdom on a more meaningful scale. This was transformative discipleship, teaching people to change the world around them for the better. That was how they operated internally as a community of believers. It was their spiritual formation, and that was a key responsibility of the church. But notice that the work of the church extended beyond their worship life, because like Jesus, his followers also saw themselves as shepherds. And shepherds, at least the good ones, do go outside of the safe place to find other sheep and call them in. Remember, Jesus called himself the Good Shepherd, and he said, I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold, and I must bring them in also. Jesus' ministry was one of inclusion, ever expanding to find those sheep who were not part of the established fold, not to shame them, but to open the doors where all are given access to that which is life-giving. His disciples, those who were serious about following his example, they did likewise. What they created was not about a religion or rules. It was about a safe and nurturing community where needs were met, where people could have life and have it abundantly. It sounds so simple because it is. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. Friends, our witness to Jesus Christ need not be any more complicated than that. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. I hardly think we could come up with a better mission statement than that. And to me, this is why the church is essential. Because while I can live out this ethos in my own life, demonstrating God's goodness to everyone, sharing food with gladness and simplicity, my impact is limited by the size of my table and the constraints of my own time and budget. But when we add all of our collective time and resource and open the gate to the safe place, maybe this sanctuary of fellowship and belonging, our impact multiplies like the loaves and fishes that have come to define Jesus' own food ministry. Of course, we also have to embrace our role as shepherds and go seeking the ones who may not realize that they are welcome. People who, like the blind man, might even have been driven away by faith communities who did not recognize their value because of the blinders people sometimes wear. I have heard the stories, and I have met the people who have been cast aside by their churches because, like the blind man, they have been deemed sinful by their church leaders. I am pretty sure that Jesus of Nazareth would have sought out precisely those people and welcomed them most graciously, throwing open the door, seating them at the best table, sitting with them to hear their stories. My friends, if we are to take seriously our mission as Jesus followers, should we not do likewise, so that others may have life and have it abundantly? As we continue our Eastertide challenge of reflecting upon our own spiritual journey, I'd like to invite you to consider two things this week. Write your thoughts down if it's meaningful to you. Here's what I want you to think about. Think about the spiritual gates you have encountered on your journey. Were they open or closed? What did that mean for you? Also, tell about someone who has been a shepherd to you, seeking you out and calling you in. Now let us close with the prayer we sang earlier, shall we? Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death into life. Amen. Go forth to do good work.